All right. Welcome, Trixy, to the Fempreneur podcast. Really great to have you today. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life just to share some inspiration with our female listeners. I know empowering women is a huge part of what you do, and you're really passionate about it. So I'm excited to give you the stage and just have you empower women in all the ways that you do. And just first of all, I guess just introduce yourself. Where are you in the world? What's your business? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me, first of all. I love what you're doing and the mission that you have, I share with you, right? To empower women. It's a big deal to me. I live in just outside of LA in Southern California in a little place called Westlake Village. So I'm working from home today, but work everywhere nationally and have had an incredible run as an entrepreneur. And it's your true American dream story, right? My parents came here from Cuba, and it was, how are we going to put food on the table? It wasn't really, hey, what would you like to do with your life? Because it was just, putting food on the table. And quickly, I realized that I wanted more, and I wanted to be able to build something I could be really proud of, something that was bigger than just myself, right? And so as kind of I went through it and I went through life, I realized that I had this bug for building companies and building other entrepreneurs. And here I am today and happy to share that story and walk through it. But, I dabble in a lot of things. My career originally started in finance and real estate. I started a company called Genesis Capital, which is a private money lender. And truly started that with a phone and a desk and myself and an idea and stars in my eyes. And also created an online auction company where I disposed of the banks and servicers distress real estate. So that one was Genesis Auctions, later became Hudson Marshall. Had the good fortune to be able to sell both of those within 9 months of each other. That's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, so that was really good. One to Fidelity, one to Goldman Sachs, and then, what do you do after, right? What does it look like to have non-competes every which way to Sunday but through all of it, I've learned so much and had the good fortune to be able to work with other entrepreneurs and really understand that the good business practices transcend all sorts of different platforms and really focusing on women and how we can encourage each other, not just with talking about it, but actually doing it, right? Rolling up our sleeves and creating opportunities for access and. So it's been an incredible journey.
Wow, that's amazing. So real estate investment, building a real estate investment fund, then that was your first big win, would you say? Or
yeah, so it was really interesting, right? It was at a time where debt was not, very well known, right? It was pre fix and flip that house, pre reality TV shows of doing that. But what I did was I raised money and we put it into a fund, right? And then I would go and lend these groups that were purchasing distressed real estate, foreclosed homes, REO and the likes. They were fixing them up, right? And then they were selling them. So some of these groups were doing 100, 150 a month, if you can believe it. And it was a production line. Some of them were doing 5 a year. It just varied on the different groups. And I realized it was an underserved niche market, right? So we were coming in and they were doing what they do. They were taking the blighted neighborhoods and revitalizing them. I was the lender providing them the capital to be able to scale their businesses. So that's what I did on one side. That was the kind of the first one, if you will. The second one, I was a person disposing and, promoting the distressed real estate. So they had one place to go to for all of the information and to be able to access and purchase them. So it was kind of both sides.
wow, amazing. So you were able to sell your fund or just sort of sell your
Yes, the management company, the portfolio of the notes, and then like the management company, right? And so when I first started the company, I was so young, right? And it was just like I just wanted to work. And then as you evolve and you grow and you scale, you learn that there's all sorts of things that you need to place into the businesses to be able to prepare for a sale. It was even more of a challenge in my space because there wasn't anything that had been done, right? The institutional world hadn't realized that this was even a thing. It wasn't an asset class. It wasn't like it is today. And so it was like going through and helping educate the marketplace on first, hey, why is leverage important? And what does that mean to me? How can I grow, and multiply my business into growth. And then it was educating the private sector as to why we were not just a good investment, but why we should be an asset class and why we should have securitizations. And so looking back on it now, I don't think we realized that we were pioneering anything. I think it was just, we see a thing that has to get done or a problem that has to get solved. But that's really what it was. And, definitely learned a lot.
Wow, that's incredible. That is so fantastic. And you mentioned that your parents immigrated from Cuba. Were you like just a little baby when they came over, or were you born?
I was born here. I was born here in the U.S. I was born in Inglewood, actually, Inglewood, California. And my parents came here. My mom probably made it, I want to say, to the 11th grade in Cuba, somewhere in there. So it wasn't really, hey, education is the key, because it wasn't it wasn't what they had experienced. It was, let's figure out a way to make things work and make ends meet. And I will never forget, I was 3 years old, and my mom wanted a better life for me, right? And for us. And she went for a job interview to this beautiful home. And it was an Italian immigrant family that had come in and, oddly enough, made their money in banking and real estate. and the babysitter didn't show up. So now she's stuck having to take me to this interview, right? She's already nervous. It's already an intimidating home, and so she says to me, Trixy, you have to come and you need to be quiet and da 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 da. And I said, all right, well, can I wear my party dress? Right? That's what I wanted to know. And I'll never forget, it was amazing. I loved it. They were so nice. They were a couple that had never had children. So we gravitated towards each other. And my mom was so nervous, right? She was rubbing her hands and doing this. And I thought, my God, I need to jump in and save her and close this for her. And so I jump in and I said, you guys should bring my mom and give her the job and da 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 da. And they said, okay, why? And I said, because then you get me, and I really like your yard. And so it was the beginning of being exposed to something better, right? And so here we go, and my mom and my dad and myself were going to move into their guest house. I'll never forget it. And I remember looking at the main house and going to the guest house and asking my mom, well, why do we live here and they live there? And I don't know what she told me. I was too young to remember. All I know is a feeling that I had inside of, I want more. I want to do that, and I want to teach others how to do that. And it just stuck with me for all of the years. So naturally, real estate and housing and home ownership for people, right? And acquiring generational wealth through real estate became a thing for me, and really understanding how the money worked, right? And how you could utilize the power of leverage was a really big kind of driver. And interestingly enough, that wasn't something that we ever talked about at home, right? We didn't own our own home. That eventually happened, but it was something that just was very appealing to me. So I walked into a Wells Fargo bank. I think I was 17, just about to be 18 years old. And I said, hey, listen, I'd love to have a job here. Give me a whatever job and I'll do it. And they started me as a teller. And I really understood, wow, this is really interesting. Let me look at the depositors. Let me look at how these groups are making money, and kind of went from there and saw an opportunity and thought, I want to build my own bank. Which I think part of it was because I was young with stars in my eyes and hadn't had life, tell you that you're not supposed to do things. So I try and tell women all the time, you gotta be that young version of yourself with stars in your eyes and block out the noise, because there's a lot of people willing to make a lot of noise and try and slow you down, and none of it matters.
Absolutely. So I love how you saw this life, you saw around you that this was possible and that you could live like that, even though it wasn't what you were raised in, and it wasn't necessarily even the life your parents were currently living. And then I'm curious to know how your parents raised you. Did they raise you to be that kid that was literally just going to go for whatever they wanted? Were they encouraging you to or were they trying to keep you safe the way a lot of our parents love us, but we end up getting messages from that love where we're not good enough, but we can't do big things? What would you say your parents parenting style and empowering you?
So I had a little bit of both, right? So my mom is fearless and a go-getter, right? But but also very much aware of her surroundings. And what I mean by that is like, doesn't want to cause like any noise, right? My father is like everyone's friend, but isn't going to like, had zero interest in being an entrepreneur and was like, just play it safe, you know, like just, he knew what he knew, right? And he was limited. And my mom was like, I know I'm limited, but I want to be able to expose you to more, right? And you can do it. And she would say that by little things. I remember being in second grade and getting ready to go into the third grade. And I told her I'm really nervous because the kids know like multiplication or whatever it was, or handwriting, and I don't, right? And I was going to a new school, and I was going from public school to private school. I went to private school for 1 year only. And I'll remember she said to me, well, Trixie, you don't have to worry about that because every year you get smarter. And so it was really interesting because something so basic like that stuck with me. And I thought, she's right. And another time my dad said something, he said, you know, Trixie, you have to be careful with who your friends are because your friends are half of who you are. And so if you associate with people that are going to take you to higher places, you're naturally going to go to higher places. So these two little nuggets, right? Your friends are half of who you are. And every year you get smarter. Those two basic things I hung on to and really like made that a part of me, if you will.
Oh, wow.
So in their way, they absolutely tried to what they knew.
So how did you, I guess, put that leveling up your friends to level up your life thing into practice when you, I guess, you know, graduated from high school and went out into the world? Like, did you find yourself trying to do that all the time, or?
Absolutely. I think that I was really acutely aware that I wanted more. I started my real first company at 14, and it was called Trixy's Tutor Time. And I only share that because it kind of goes in with what you're saying. So I had made the cheer squad and the soccer team, and each sport was like $1,000, let's say. So now I have to come up with $2,000, and that's a big deal, right? In like 2 weeks. So I thought, all right, well, I'll earn it. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to stress anyone out because obviously money was very difficult to come by. And, you know, there were several problems with that strategy. A, you needed a worker's permit. B, you needed somebody to drive you to and from and, right? So I went across the street, and with computer paper, I created these little business cards with magic markers for Trixy's Tutor Time. And my sisters, I have two younger sisters, 10 and 11 years younger than myself. They went to this elementary school. I went across the street to the principal, and I explained to him I was starting this company and he paid it forward by introducing me to the teachers. And within 1 month, I was making more money than both of my parents combined. But more importantly, what I realized was if I made my sweet spot, the second and third graders, I could hire the fifth and sixth graders, and I could expand to another school. So within 30 days, I'm hiring my mom to be my driver to drive me to these other schools. And I realized, my God, where there's a will, there's a way. You just have to really focus in on it, right? So when I had that experience, I wasn't interested in getting into trouble or getting sidetracked or doing anything that a lot of the kids my age were doing. So naturally, I gravitated towards wisdom, right? Towards people that I could learn from. How did you do this? How did you do that? So I really kind of at a young age realized, wow, if I want this bad enough, it's just like a sport. I got to go out there and train and hustle and do the best I can. So constantly trying to improve and to learn. I learned, like, if I was the smartest person in the room, find another room, you know, and I just continued to maintain that. So a lot of the things that, you know, were maybe normal for my age group, I just had no interest in. I really wanted to be successful and build something. I didn't know what that thing was, right? I still wonder, what am I going to do when I grow up? But I knew that I wanted to do something that was huge and that would create opportunities for others. And you know, later that evolved into regional job creation and housing and a lot of really fun, interesting projects.
Cool. And I know you're a boy mom. You've got a couple boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about raising babies and businesses at the same time. Like, what are the blessings? What are the challenging parts? What tips would you give moms of
my gosh, so it's incredible. So I waited to have my sons, and I'm so grateful that I did, right? Because I had a plan, and I knew that I was building these companies, and it was taking my every effort and ounce of, you know, blood, sweat, and tears. So I had them a little bit later in life, and which has been so much fun. And we're a blended family. So I have a total of 4 boys between the ages of 4 and 8. So it's been, I know, so it's like the little Ninja Turtles, and it's been a lot of fun. So they, they're the most incredible and exciting, time, and the most exciting ever in my entire life. So, we do a lot of things. We do soccer and football and it's a lot of fun. And I want them to see that women can do it all, and to see their mom out there trying to light the world on fire and inspiring and encouraging people, and them being the priority, right? So a lot of times I include them in what we're doing. So they have their little business cards and they'll come on trips with me, so that it's not this, oh my God, my mom has to do this, right? It's, wow, we get to be a part of this as a family. So I really try very hard to encourage them to, understand it, be a part of it, and in their own little way, participate. The 4-year-old, reminds me that he knows his shapes and colors and can count to 100. So he doesn't really need to go to preschool. He can just come to work with me. And so we get past that, in the mornings, but it's really inspiring, really rewarding, I should say. Does it have its challenges? Absolutely. Like all of us girls, and I'm juggling plates and lots of them, right? And trying to make sure that, you're not missing any. But I tell women all the time, like, listen, you're juggling 15 plates or whatever the number is. You're a human being. You're going to drop 1 or 2. That's just part of it. And maybe those 1 or 2 you shouldn't have been juggling to begin with, right? Maybe they weren't important enough. But let's not focus on the ones we dropped. Let's celebrate those, because maybe it's a opa moment, right? And let's focus on the fact that you were able to juggle 15 plates. I mean, that's pretty badass, right? And so I try and tell women all the time, remember, it's easy to say, hard to do, right? Like, remember that for yourself. You are the business. You are the person that deserves to invest time into herself and deserves the opportunity to grow and to reflect and to say, hey, here's a challenge. Let me figure out how I can ask for help. Let me use my resources. And that is all part of the journey. And yet it's never talked about, right? So when I was coming up in business, there certainly wasn't all of the things that there are now, where we can, at our fingertips, reach out and have platforms like yours, right? Where we can come together and really learn and educate, inspire, and, grow together. So we need to capitalize on that and jump on that and be those, those leaders for each other.
Absolutely. So let's talk a bit more about your passion for housing and, coming from immigration parents and just some challenges around housing. Tell us those stories and what you're doing today to help with this problem in your area.
Absolutely. So I think, look, being first generation ever, anytime from anywhere is a challenge, right? Because your parents are coming, they don't necessarily know the language. They've had their own experiences in their home country. So there's good and bad that have taken place there. What's spilled over here? The culture's different, right? There's all the things that kind of challenge with that. And I think a lot of times the kids are kind of thrown to the forefront because they are the English speakers, or they do understand the culture, or they're going to school. I used that to grow and learn and fuel that, right? Because I understood that there was, there are going to be challenges. Housing became very important to me, I think, because of these experiences, right? And I think that I realized everybody deserves an opportunity to be involved in real estate in one way or another. So it became a very important thing for me to try and help level the playing field and almost like democratize real estate investment. It seemed like this incredibly, huge challenge that would never happen, but they set out to do that, and to be able to revitalize neighborhoods and to be able to create job growth in the regionals, and like straight old school. Okay. Like, I'd fly in, this was pre Airbnb, get out there, shake hands, meet people. On one occasion, I went to go see a house that I was going to lend money on, right? And it was in a place called Paris, California. And I'll never forget, because I'd never been there. So I got lost like 37 times, right? And I finally get there, and I get out of the car, and I'm talking to the homeowners, and they're saying to me, well, Trixy, we're original homeowners. Basically, we did everything right. And we are trapped in our homes because there's squatters, or there's gangs, or there's violence, because all of these homes around us have gone into foreclosure. So we can't take our grandkids to school, or we can't take our kids to school. So story after story after story. And that was the premise of building the online auction company, because I thought, now I'm morally involved. Like these people have a problem. So by default, now I'm invested in it. How can I figure out a way to unravel that, bring in these groups that I'm lending money on over here to revitalize? So we did just that. And that is how we birthed Genesis Auctions. Truly, that's how it happened. I went back, less than 4 months later, these people made me a cake. They made me a cake, and I know it like makes me want to cry. And they said, "You gave us back our community. Thank you." And at that moment, like I tear up just thinking about it, at that moment, I knew I need to do this, and I need to do it across the country, and I need to bring awareness and whatever it takes to be able to give people their communities back and to be able to give them the opportunity, right, that they've worked so hard for, became just a mission. So it didn't matter to me if someone rented, owned, didn't matter. It was about how do you create the best housing for individuals and level the playing field in addition to, so that everybody can invest in real estate, right? Someone like my mom, who is not a real estate investor per se, would have the same opportunities as someone like myself that eats, breathes, and lives it every day. So that was a big one.
Okay, I'm trying to understand what you just said and how it actually looks and works. So Genesis Auctions was born from this story you just told us. So tell us more about how it actually works, like the inner workings of Genesis Auctions and how people actually use this.
So that became Hudson Marshall, right? I merged. That company I sold to Fidelity. The other one, Genesis Capital, I sold to Goldman Sachs. But I'll tell you how they still operate today. So one was is an online auction company that would take all of the banks, a majority of the banks' assets that are in distressed real estate, right? REO, for example, and sell it on that platform. So that was a way that investors and individuals could come on to the website and view, like an eBay for distressed real estate, right? The other side was a private money bank where a lot of the banks traditionally don't do non-owner occupied loans or will only do up to 10. So if you have a portfolio of 50 homes, for example, you can only get, leverage on 10. So and it takes 30 days or 45 days. And oftentimes you have to move very quickly for these deals. You have, a week. So that was that private money lender that was very fast, and that is very fast, and had the kind of the velocity and was specialized in what we call B2B lending. So those were those two companies. Those were my first, my first two to try and figure out. We did them nationwide, and we did them at large scale on the lending platform. Prior to my selling it, we were over $2 billion a year of that type of paper of something that people would say, you'll never make it. It doesn't exist, blah, 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 so that was really exciting. And then from that, a lot of other companies have evolved where, all sorts of things that I've been investing in, either building myself or investing in other entrepreneurs that are all related to housing and finance and real estate.
Awesome. So you sold those companies, and then you continue to stay in the real estate world, and now you are investing in other real estate companies and funds, and you do have your own fund. Like, you waited out the non-competes and now you're kind of doing it again, or like, how does that look?
Yep. So waited out my non-competes and knew that, like, oh my gosh, this is going to be really hard for me. So went to Europe, right? Like take the temptation away, because I really wanted to honor my word and really understand, like, hey, what am I missing? What can I improve, right? Where are there additional opportunities? And so went there, came back, had my kids, and opened another private money shop called TRX, which is really great. And so it's, the new model of it, if you will, and really very client focused, really understanding what the desire and the need is of the developer, and as well as the area. So that's very focused on that one. And then started investing into other entrepreneurs across all platforms. Didn't matter the industry, from tech to all sorts of things, and really thought I was just going to do a few, and ended up, 50 plus. And that's been a lot of fun, and really enjoy everything that I learned through them, right? Because now I'm seeing their vision and their passion, and applying good business practices and relationships and the likes to be able to scale their dreams. And so it's been really fun and exciting on that end. But of course, being an entrepreneur, I always am building my own things too. What I build are always very real estate focused, or very, whether it's portfolios or, you know, being able to create kind of platform to dispose of assets, those types of things, helping other groups scale with their, as a debt partner. So it's all very centric to both of those, let's say, common themes.
Awesome. So you are now a mom with 4 little ones between 4 and 8, and you have TRX and you're investing in other people's companies. Basically, I guess my question is, with all of that going on and that being your life right now, I know that you're doing lots of podcast interviews now and you're getting out there and you're spreading the word about your story and you're empowering women through sharing your story. Like, what would be your ideal outcome from being on the Fempreneur podcast? Like, what kind of women do you want to connect with and in what way? And I mean, even speaking to your mentorship, like what kind of clients are you looking for and what does the mentorship program with you look like? Like, tell us about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to be able to connect with every woman, right? So to me, it doesn't really matter whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you're a leader in your own career path. If you want to do more, right? If you want to grow yourself, like, that's somebody that I would love to hitch my wagon to. And I think there's so much that we can learn from each other, right? And so my whole thing has always been to build a platform that could inspire and help others grow as well, right? It's very much a yes you can story, and it's my story. It's I have no other words other to say I'm living proof that you can do it. And so to be able to take some of that negativity that we oftentimes see in the world as women, or hear or feel, right? To take that and to mute that is really important. And to be able to say, hey, listen, like, focus on what you want and how we're going to get there, right? Let's work backwards. Here's the goal. Let's work backwards. Here are the steps that it's going to take to accomplish that goal.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been able to be forward facing because I've been building the companies and. So now it's okay, here's my opportunity to go and tell the story. And if I can, you know, empower one woman, then that's a huge win. As that has kind of evolved, right? Looking at other businesses and looking at other opportunities that have evolved as a result of that, here we are today, right? And so it's been very interesting. It was never like I set out to say, hey, I'm going to go be a mentor. It just naturally evolved. And it was a lot of the same common kind of challenges that entrepreneurs are having that I've been through, right? I've done them the right way, the wrong way, every which way to Sunday. And so it was, okay, let's figure out how we can do that. So it's been an evolution and an evolvement, if you will. And right now it's one of these things that it's just my heart and soul to get out there and to be able to just be a point of reference for someone. When I was coming up, there wasn't somebody that I knew of, right, that you could point to and say, listen, they've had the challenges, right? They didn't necessarily have it all peaches and cream. There were challenges, and here's how you navigated through them, and here's what it looked like, and here are some tools to utilize that, right? And so all of that has been extremely important. I've had some very great fortune to meet some incredible people. There's one group with a company called Roots that I'm super excited about. Their mission and my mission were very aligned. And so they started it very grassroots out of Georgia. And they created a REIT type of a platform where they invest in real estate. And they took this challenge that historically it's the landlord, right? And the tenant are at odds. Tenant is like, you're not going to give me my deposit back, right? Landlords, you're going to trash the place. And so there's this disparity from day one. And so they put together a product where anyone that's a Reg A offering, anyone can invest in real estate, $100 or more, right? And they also, which I love that, it's been a mission, but they also took this issue with the tenants and the landlords. And they said, okay, look, we need to be able to have eyes inside. We want to be able to see that, you know, that the place is still good. So every quarter, take a video, right, in these parameters, send it to us, and we'll give you a rebate of whatever the number is, so that the person is earning money while being able to kind of rent like you own, right? And so being able to kind of have that mind shift. So all of these opportunities are as a result of being in there in the local markets and in the trenches, so to speak. And I love it. So I never want to lose sight of that.
Cool. That's awesome. So do you run like like mentorship groups or coaching groups for women, or just is it one-on-one? Is it like a paid thing? Like we have programs? Like how does that actually look?
So right now I've just been referring to the experts, if you will, because that's not like something that I've been able to put together as a one-on-one or as in a large group. It's more been that I've invested in the companies and really focused to help them scale. So I realize that, I'm pretty at capacity for that, because it's not just writing a check, it's getting in there and seeing what the business needs are. So right now, if someone contacts me and they want to do that, happy to talk to them. And if I'm the right fit, great. If not, here are some, incredible other women that do this and that will spend the time. And so far it's been, really effective.
Nice. And then are you investing in any Canadian real estate projects, or is it all in the US?
All in the US.
Nice. That's awesome.
For now.
Yeah, for now, for sure. Cool. What would you tell your 10-year younger self? 10 years
Block
ago?
out the noise. Block out the noise. It's just noise. Block it out. Because I think with being young, you get the good and the bad, right? You get where people underestimate you and you can make that your superpower. But I think that we tend to not maybe have come into our own skin as quickly, right? Or as much as like I am today, if you will. And I think the noise affects us. So I would tell young Trixie, block out the noise, because it doesn't really matter, right? To me, that is everything, because I realized so early on that it's up here. You can block yourself or you can pave your own way. So what are you worried about what other people have to say, right? But it doesn't feel that way when you're younger.
Right. And is there a story you can tell us about maybe a time when you didn't block out the noise because you didn't, maybe 10 plus years ago, when you didn't have the same sort of spidey senses for that at the time, and maybe how that changed you, or just any stories around that blocking out the noise thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, when you don't block out the noise and you don't follow your gut, it's like a recipe for disaster, right? So like, I think blocking out the noise gives you the ability to really be in tune with your gut, right? And to be able to follow that and to be confident in that. And every single time I didn't block out the noise, I also didn't follow my gut, right? So it kind of, for me, went hand in hand. And that's when I tripped up. That's where I limited myself, or usually allowed another party to limit myself. And what that looked like was either like a bad hire, right? Which to me, team is everything. It was either a bad hire, or it was trying to be too many things that you weren't, right? And sometimes as entrepreneurs, we get lost in that, because we are so let's hold on tight and white knuckle it and be resilient, and all of these things doesn't mean you have to do it in every single situation. And so oftentimes, and it happened to me several times until I was able to like stop, take a minute, reflect, and really say, okay, this is an issue. This is a me issue. Let me solve for that, right? It was just that, right? It was, I paid attention to the noise and I doubted myself. And usually what it looked like was, oh, that person knows more than I do. They've done this. They're more successful. They're a bigger personality. Whatever it was minimizing myself and what I knew to be true, right? And having that 1 second of self-doubt, and then it pours in, and then I didn't follow my gut. So it was a very quick learning experience after, I'll give you an example, after a hire that I was so excited about and but there was always these like little red flags, right? And I didn't follow my gut. I kind of let them, oh, they've done it before, they're more seasoned, they're older, whatever the case was. And that person, ended up it was a disaster for me personally. And so it was just really difficult to overcome and to realize, okay, the mistake wasn't the hire, right? They are who they are. The mistake was I didn't allow myself to follow my gut, and I allowed myself to listen to outside exterior voices that were telling me, hey, listen, this person knows, they're great, almost like ramming it down my throat. And I knew better, right? And so I tell that to women all the time, because sometimes we focus on the end result of where we think it went wrong, the bad hire, but it's really not that. It's rewind and go back to here, where step A, you let the outside noise affect and impact your decision-making in business. So taking the time to reflect on the good and the bad, right? Of like, okay, here were the challenges. here's how, yeah, where it's great. Here's the resilience part of it, but here's the growth opportunity for it, right? And here's where the growth opportunity should be talked about, because we're all going to make mistakes. And sometimes the mistakes impact you greater than other times. But either way, it always, for me personally, tied back to those two things going hand in hand.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Trusting the gut. Trusting the gut is huge. Yeah, for sure. And so I just want to kind of start to wrap it up. So I want to make sure that if you have anything time sensitive coming up, that we can support you in. If you're, speaking at an event or anything like that. If you have a great piece of content that you want to send Fempreneurs to, that I can link in the show notes, anything at all, what would those one or more things be?
Thank you. So yes, so people can reach out to me on trixycastro.com. I have a podcast coming out, Success Unlocked, later this year. And the premise of that one is taking rising stars and connecting them with proven leaders, right? And creating that access, because that's something that I, definitely know that I lacked and needed as a young entrepreneur when I was coming up. But there's a lot of things that we're working on, a lot of things that I am really excited about. We will be able to share all of that on the website, and people can feel free to reach out anytime.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I love your website. I love learning a little bit about you on there, and I'm excited for your podcast for sure. And I appreciate you taking the time away from your boys and from your many business ventures to share some of these really, really valuable stories with us. Thank you, Trixy.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day. And thanks, Fempreneurs. You can learn more about me and my books that I recently wrote